Yesterday in Parliament, the Prime Minister was asked no less than 3 times why he was taking universities down, quote, the American path. And as someone who's had half his education in the United States, it makes me sad the way in this debate the American higher education system has been demonised, especially since it is preeminent in so many ways. It's the model from which we can learn so much, the destination of choice of students around the world, the centre of so much first-class research. Of course, what this is a reference to is a nightmare about students in a deregulated environment having huge university fees and huge and persistent debts for those fees that then plague them for their working life. Now, it is a nightmare, and it's one that ought to vanish in a flash. The fact of the matter is that the average US debt for a student is $28,000. Most university students in the US attend state-funded public universities. They leave universities with debts of less than $10,000. There's less than 7% of American students who have debts of over $50,000. There are, of course, a small number of very expensive private universities who charge, at least on paper, vast fees. But those universities are also the locus of an enormous number of scholarships. Hardly anyone at those universities pays the sticker price. Many of them pay nothing at all. But Australians don't want to hear the facts about the US. It's a shame that closed minds don't come with closed mouths. The real problem in the US are the dropouts, those who don't finish, who then are delivered into the workforce, unqualified, have to take low-paying jobs, and then struggle to pay off their debts and suffer great hardship. Now, could that happen in Australia? No, of course not, because of the fact that we have HECS. And one of the glories of HECS is that no one pays anything until their wage exceeds $50,000 a year. Those American dropouts in Australia would be paying nothing at all. Actually, the big difference between us and the US is not the fee and the debt situation. It's the enormous role philanthropy plays in American universities, and it's the enormous role the government plays in research grants. Now, coming to government support of higher education, we reach a difficult point. In Australia, public spending on higher education has diminished in real terms for nearly 20 years, progressively. The current level of public spending on higher education in Australia is about equal to Slovakia and slightly less than Estonia. I wouldn't have taken the coalition as admirers of the economies of the former Soviet states, but that is the fact. The cuts the Liberals are proposing of $1.9 billion, which Sandra has referred to, are not the exclusive property of the coalition. They follow the Labor's so-called efficiency dividend of $2.3 billion of cuts. As our costs have risen over the last decade, we have had only one lever to balance our books, and that has been volume. The student body gets larger and larger, classes get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's no good to say to university, well, cut your costs. We've been progressively cutting our costs for a decade. Most universities are now down to the bone on the cost side. We need to work on the income side, and the only lever we've had, given that price is fixed, is volume. Now, for a university like mine, the University of Adelaide, that is committed to a plan to return to small group teaching, that is, of course, a disaster. We need the other lever. We need price flexibility. Now, this means increasing the student contribution. Is it fair that we ask students for more money? My eldest son, a university student, says to me, "Now, Dad, tell me again, why is it I should pay more and it's good for me?" Irritating children, aren't they? The reality is that in my university, and it's not atypical, that the education of a medical, dentist or veterinary science student is largely paid for by law and business students. That's the way the fixed price environment works. The medicine, dentist and vet science students pay a tiny fraction of the cost of their education. The business and law students pay far more than it costs to deliver. This is not going to survive in a deregulated environment. Yes, the costs of medicine, dentistry and law will probably go up in such an environment. I doubt the same will be the pattern in some other disciplines. Business, in this city, there's about 5 business institutions offering business courses. There's going to be competition. There'll be discounting, there'll be innovative delivery, there'll be much greater choice. There'll be much greater competition if this prevails. And asking students to contribute more is not a solely Australian thing. There's at least 7 advanced countries who've been down this path quite recently, from the United Kingdom to Canada, from Germany to South Korea. What we're faced with is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to set this right. For 30 years, we've had a monochrome educational environment in this country. 39 universities, all required to define themselves as research universities. Now, in the US, 7% of universities are research intensive. There's 3,000 universities and colleges that do no or little research at all and who focus on great teaching. It's not been possible for universities to do that in this country. And I have a vision of a new environment slowly emerging, one in which universities use imagination to change their missions, to offer a much wider variety of choice, to be different, not just in price, but in the complexion of what they're offering. I have a vision of more Australian philanthropists stepping forward to back these new, focused and different missions. This won't happen quickly. This is the business of a decade, of 20 years. One thing's certain, though, we cannot go on as we are. Of course, deregulation being passed with no cuts would be delightful. The danger at the moment is we might have cuts passed without deregulation. That would be a disaster. It would lead to the slow starvation of our universities. It would lead to a great fiscal famine in higher education. For most Western countries, the future of universities ought to be very bright. Participation in university education by all sectors of the community has never been as high. The opportunities for global reach of universities through MOOCs, through technology, are exceptional and have never been so exceptional. The ways of improving teaching and learning through technology, through innovative delivery, have never been so great. And the thirst of the public at large for research, for universities to contribute to the economic growth and prosperity of the nation, to contribute to solving disease and all kinds of other problems, has never been as great. The next quarter century ought to be like the quarter century just after World War II, a period of great ferment and creativity. It won't be, though, if we stay regulated. We need to deregulate price. All Vice Chancellors want what's proposed for students here, the new repayment arrangements at the compound bond interest rates, to be defeated by the Senate, and I sincerely hope the repayment arrangements will be defeated. But most Vice-Chancellors want deregulation approved. And I join Sandra in urging all of you, with any contact you have with our friends in the Senate, to urge that outcome. Thank you.